Hello, everybody. This is Tom Eckert here. You're listening to my podcast, Numerology, a GPS for the soul. This is your place to learn about the true power of numerology and how to use it to bring out the best in yourself, understand your loved ones better, take wise decisions, and prepare for your future. In other words, how to live your life aligned with your true destiny. Take your time to educate yourself and share these podcasts with your friends and family so they too can enjoy the great benefits of numerology. Enjoy! Hello there, and welcome to all my beloved listeners. Today we have a special episode where we're gonna take a deep dive into the numerology chart of a spiritual teacher. A spiritual teacher I love. But before I tell you who the spiritual teacher is, if you happen to be new here, first of all, welcome. In my podcast, we discuss in-depth numerology as a path for inner transformation, spiritual growth, and self-understanding. I personally attempt to make numerology grounded, applicable, and accessible so you can use it for everyday life matters. And I do my best to provide you with the information that you need to apply numerology to live a better life, more conscious life, more balanced, more aligned with your soul and with your true purpose. Now, here are a few ways you can dive deeper into numerology. First and foremost, you can book a numerology reading with me. In a professional numerology reading, you can ask any questions that is burning in your life and get precise answers tailored especially to you. You can read more about my readings and contact me through the link in the episode description to book your reading with me. If you wish to study numerology on a deeper level or even pursue it as a career, I'm inviting you to check out my 2 numerology study paths. First, check out my self-study numerology courses that give you the rare and unique opportunity to learn numerology at your own pace online on your mobile device, your tablet, or your laptop. My library currently includes 2 self-study courses, but more are coming up. Or if you want to be initiated into the rare depths of numerology, you can sign up to my Complete Path of Certification, where you study directly with me, one-on-one, all the way from a total beginner or exactly where you're at, all the way to a numerology expert, and you get certified as a professional numerologist. Now, to read more about both study paths, check the links in the episode description. So in this episode, I will do what I love to do. That is, I will analyze the numerology chart of a person I love without any preparation, completely freestyle, to help you feel and see how numerology works. Naturally, in the beginning stages of professional work as numerologists, one has to write down many notes, as the knowledge is still not completely integrated and alive, and has not yet become fully automatic in one. But over time, and with sufficient practice and love for this incredible science and art, it can be ever more spontaneous. Now, I'm dedicating this particular episode to the chart of a spiritual teacher that I love very much, and whose books and presence were really part of my path. And that is none other than Adyashanti. So if Adyashanti if you ever happen to listen to this episode, just thank you for all your wonderful work. It's precious, it's honest, it's sincere, it's transparent, it's succinct, and thank you for being who you are, for being pure-hearted. I even had the privilege, by the way, to participate in 2 in-person satsangs of Adyashanti in Palo Alto, California. And no need to mention that I live very far away in Germany. So this episode is a deep dive into the numerology chart of a spiritual teacher who, in my opinion, is very pure and has an outstanding capacity to bring clarity to the most essential things on the path of truth, the spiritual path, to put the emphasis on where it truly matters. So let's dive right in. And remember that everything I'm sharing with you is completely freestyle. I'm literally looking at Adyashanti's chart right now. So it's simply in front of me. And I'm going to simply, you know, jam on it, like simple freestyle. So you can also, the thing is, in my podcast, what I'm trying to always achieve is to help you, my followers, my listeners, the audience who follows me and loves numerology, to really feel into the numbers, not to be too dogmatic about what each number means, like a computer, to feel into them, like just like you feel into life. Numerology is a representation of life, so let's remember that as we listen to this sort of freestyle analysis. So the first thing when I look at Adya's, and by the way, Adya is the way people call Adyashanti, usually his students and followers. So Adya's core numbers are, we're starting with a life path 189 and with a birthday number 26/8. So in short, a 9 and an 8. Both are derived from his date of birth, and they tell me something about Adya's most immediate nature, one can say, before I even branch out to look at other numbers that are very important in his chart. We'll soon unpack that as well. But looking at this, first of all, I see that Adya is a very, very open person. So having a 9 in your life path tells me that this person is really all-inclusive, very, very open-hearted, very generous, and kind in his nature. So someone who's really, I would say, also idealistic. And idealistic is not necessarily in the sense of, oh, I'm now trying to create a utopia, but more like idealistic in the sense that I'm willing to sacrifice for the ideas I believe are true, or the values I believe are true. So I can already tell you, okay? Now, I follow Adyashanti much before I knew anything about his chart, and what always is, astonished me and impressed me a lot is that Adya is pretty well known. This is a man who, some years ago was also featured on Oprah, so he's really well known, and yet the prices to his courses, to his online, events, to his retreats, to his satsangs are always so humble. This is not one of those teachers that take like hundreds of dollars to just, participate in a satsang in like an evening event of 2 hours. Take someone like Eckhart Tolle, which I also appreciate, but Eckhart Tolle is something else. The numbers portray a completely different, picture. And so to participate in Eckhart's events is really expensive. Whereas in Adya, again, you can just participate. It's really open to almost everyone. And for those who don't have money, they offer scholarships, which is so touching. Again, that's what I mean by being famous, but not letting it corrupt you, because there's a value, and I follow those values. We'll talk more about that as we unpack the sacred triad in Adya's chart. And for those of you who don't know what the sacred triad means, it means the life path, the expression number, and the solar numbers, which together form the sacred triad, or the 3 most influential and impactful numbers in a person's chart. But still staying on the 9 and the 8 as the core, I can also say that, or tell or see that at the root, Adya comes from like a very fiery core, one can say. That's like where he comes from. That's the roots. There's a lot of fire and actually also ambition. There's a totality at Adya's core. So with a 9 and an 8 as sort of like the core inborn energies that move me, there's a lot of fire and also ambition, totality, right? Someone who just like goes all the way, pushes all the way, and also a great appetite. Now I'm going to translate this to the spiritual path in this case. To really walk the spiritual path in earnestness and deeply and see results, it cannot be a hobby. One has to be all in. And I definitely know after, I've been following Adyashanti for almost 20 years, reading all of his books, participating in some of his online events, seeing him in person. Adya has always been very total from the very beginning in his, early 20s, and into his, years as a teacher. He's been very, very total in his way, in his path, very dedicated, very sincere, truly all in, really seeking truth, willing to go through a lot of discomfort in order to live that kind of truth and discover it. And so I attribute that to the 9 and the 8 at the core. So now let's expand. Now I'm looking at Adya's soul urge, and I see an 11-2. And the 11-2 again expands on the idealistic side, the side that cares for values, for justice, for self-honesty, by the way. And I can definitely say that if there's one spiritual teacher that, in my opinion, is very humble and doesn't brag about their achievements, doesn't try to be more than they are, doesn't pretend that spirituality is more than it is, it really is Adya. And then when you think of the 9 and the 11-2, and 11 always functions as both an 11 and a 2. If you are unfamiliar with master numbers, go ahead and listen to the episodes about master numbers. Then the 9 and the 11 and the 9 and the 2 are very much a representation of generosity and being a person that truly is here to serve. In fact, very often I speak about the 9-2 combo or the 9-11 combo. Sorry for didn't mean only in 9-11 numerologically speaking, as a combo of the bodhisattva. Okay, I might have already spoken about this in one of my episodes. I'm not completely sure, but the 9-2 has a great open heart. Very much a person who doesn't live for gain, personal gain, money, fame, power. These are really people who give a lot of themselves and are here to serve. The bodhisattva is something coming from the Buddhist path. These are beings of high spiritual attainment that are here to serve humanity, even though it's very, very hard to incarnate in this planet. And even though they could potentially already live in a much better place that is not this planet necessarily, they keep coming here to help humanity because the heart is just burning. They cannot help it. You cannot escape the suffering of all your brothers and sisters, and you keep coming to help them. And I can say that about Adya, like for sure. He's so like that. This kindness. Just write Adyashanti on YouTube. Listen to his videos. Look at his lectures. Look at how he's, speaking to the public, and you'll just see like a very humble man that simply speaks the truth. Really speaks the truth. I used to say, some people used to tell me that I remind them of Adyashanti when I used to sort of give satsangs and do all these things, Dharma talks. And I think what really resonated and echoed for me the most about Adya is how transparent he is and sort of like an open book, very, very honest, always putting honesty above enlightenment or, all these like great words. It's about honesty. Honesty is the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I really saw that about Adya. And you can really see that about the 9 and the 2. Now let's expand. The expression number is a 3 and a 39-3, which is in many ways a 3 that has, again, it also reaches into the 9. There's a greater openness to that 3. There's also, by the way, greater talent for this particular 3 with words and writing. So I'll soon get to that. But first, I want to speak to the 9 and 3. And the 9 and 3, as a combo, first of all, are very, very good communicators. Very good with words. Definitely have the gift of the gab. And also, being able to be very succinct, understandable, and lovable. like communicate ideas in a way that reaches the hearts of people. And to be sort of innocent in heart, untainted by the hardships and difficulties of life. You see them, you acknowledge them, definitely. You have compassion for them, but you are not tainted by them. Your heart remains pure. And hands down, Adya is one of those people. And so if you look at the sacred triad here, we're seeing a 9, a 3, a 2, or 11, 2. We're seeing a lot of open numbers. This is a very, very open person, open to listen to others, which is really touching because, and again, speaking only from, as the critical person that I am, looking at spiritual teachers, observing, spiritual teachers over many, many years, many spiritual teachers, they love sharing their opinions. They're not good listeners. Many of them think they're like know-it-alls. Um, so, to see someone in that landscape of teachers who is so open and vulnerable as well. Like, when you hear ideas, there's this, I remember this interview where he's interviewed by Tammy Simone. I think that's on Sounds True. And he speaks about his like early awakening or something along these lines. Forgive me if I'm a little bit off here, but he starts to simply cry right there and then as he's describing these events. And he says, I always get emotional. And as he says that, he starts crying, and you hear that. And it's so sweet. Like, it's so touching and something to appreciate. And so you see that openness of heart and emotional world with the 9, with the 2, with the 3, a lot of willingness, to open up, to be vulnerable. It's a little bit, when I look at these numbers, the first feeling that I get is like, this is a person that, they teach what they are. It's not a person who teaches ideas, who teaches like grand visions of what's possible. This is the person who teaches what they live, who communicates things in a way that are digestible and understandable. Now, that sort of brings me back to that 39-3, but also the 9, by the way. The gift of the gab and the ability to communicate ideas that are profound. 9, wisdom and spirituality in ways that are so digestible and approachable. That's the 3. And the 39-3 is, again, the gift of simply speaking in spontaneous ways without needing to sort of edit yourself. Writing books that are so digestible. I can read Adya's books. To me, if I want clarity, just to remember what's what on the path, I love listening and reading to Adya. It's always sort of aligning everything within me. It's like, yes, 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 I remember. Yes, thank you, Adya. You're so succinct. You're so, spot on. You're just touching those elements that are the most important. So before I unpack further numbers on Adya's chart, if you're enjoying this podcast, if you want to keep learning more grounded and in-depth and high-quality numerology, please make sure to subscribe, click the follow button, and turn on notifications bell on the platform you're listening from, and become part of my numerology community. Support this work, and let us bring high-quality numerology to the world together. And also make sure to follow me on Substack, where I write in-depth content about numerology and Dharma combined. And the links are in the podcast episode description. And lastly, my friends, make sure to comment. There's a comment section, definitely on YouTube, definitely on Spotify. Be part of the conversation. Ask questions, share your thoughts, and I always try to answer every single comment. Okay, so having said that, let us go back to the chart. So we're looking at someone who's very open, who's very innocent. And I also want to say, when I see in the upper triad or the sacred triad, okay, a 9, an 11, and a 3, there's also a mystical element to this personality. So what I see here is someone who is, again, honest, and also honest in their, or here's a word, someone who's not cynical, someone who's not sarcastic about things spiritual. For example, the ability to say God, or to have a genuine attraction to the divine, to God, to something of the mystical, and not be cynical about this. For example, there are many spiritual seekers out there who are very okay, let's say, with practicing a very sterile, like a very sterile spirituality, meaning they don't have to have any devotion to anything. There doesn't have to be any God. There doesn't have to be any mysticism. It's all about sort of like emptiness, discovering the silence, discovering whatever. It's only about like understanding the nature of the mind. There's something a little bit, and again, I'm borrowing this word with many, many caveats, but there's something a little too masculine about this approach. It has to be very systematic, very clean, no God, no deities, no love for God. God forbid you use the word love. You know what I mean? It's all about like meditation, self-inquiry, um, consciousness observing itself, non-duality, whatever, okay? But with Adya, even though he was putting the emphasis on non-dual realization and he used all those words, you could see that he was also innocently loving God. In fact, Adya wrote an entire book on the life of Jesus, or Jesus' awakening. Forgive me, I don't remember the name of the book, but it's about Jesus awakening through the story of Jesus, and it's a brilliant book, one of his most powerful books, in my opinion. And he always said that he has this strong, pull to Christian mysticism. And with Christian mysticism, if anyone of you knows something about it, and I do, there's a lot. It's all about God. It's all about faith. It's all about relationship with God. We just read like, Saint Francis, right? Saint John of the Cross, Teresa of Avila, and so on. All those great saints, and you will really see like this great relationship with God. And you have to have an innocent heart to be able to include both these realities. The reality of non-dual realization, where in a way, even the concept of God as a separate anything disappears, but at the same time to maintain that love to something bigger than yourself. And I could find that in Adya, and that's absolutely admirable. And again, I attribute it to his sacred triad, the 9, the 11, 2, the 3 numbers that kept him innocent. It kept him non-cynical, right? And I'll add to that, Adya's maturity number is 12-3. Now, 12-3 is a special number because it is not just any kind of 3, but it's a 3 that is more connected to the mystical realms. It's a 3 that is more connected to the mysterious, to the uncontrolled, to the unknown and unknowable. So it's a 3 that has an access to the mysterious dimensions of the universe. And it tells me that because Adya already has a 3 in his expression number, but then again, the maturity number is a 12-3, it tells me that in a way, his chart is also, as he ripens and we continually ripen, it's not something that ends at a particular point in time, he allows himself to open up even more to the mystical, even more to the mysterious, right? There's something about non-dual sterile teachings that don't allow any space for anything energetic, anything that is about, again, deities or beings or lights or whatnot, or God as, again, as something that will always be to some extent separate from me in the sense that I'm enveloped in it. And I believe that in Adya's chart, that is not the case. He actually has an non-dual realization, and he's open to that. One can call it even like a religious spirit, not religious in the sense of belonging to a particular religion, a religious spirit. Osho, the spiritual teacher, used to call that religiousness, not being religious, but having the quality of religiousness. And I can definitely see that. I think it's there. I think it's there. I definitely feel Adya is more sort of, generally speaking, he's more like the emptiness type of guy. Silence is definitely like a strong, energetic, radiance, something that radiates from him. But still, I think there's always a place in his heart for this religiousness. What's fascinating, and I'm not gonna unpack this in too much detail because I also don't want to confuse you guys. It's important for me to sort of stay as focused as I can and not deviate from the core numbers because I don't want to make it too complicated. But I will say a few words about the period cycles chart in Adya's life, because what's very fascinating is that all the chart, like the entire chart, is basically made of a 10, 1, 9, and 8s. That's it. These are the three numbers, 1, 8, 9. And all of these numbers are, frankly speaking, very powerful numbers, willful numbers, demanding numbers, very active numbers. And it's fascinating how they are accompanying his entire life. So that shows me that even though a lot of his chart is, especially the upper triad, is very open and fluid and not necessarily the most pushy of energies, there was also a kind of pushy element throughout this path of Adya, and still is. Maybe a little less because he's 63 years old now. But it does tell me that life pushed him to be in a position of authority, in a position of leadership, in a position of doing, being very, very active for a long time. And in a way, not letting him rest. It's pretty demanding. Now, I remember Adya describing himself and someone he was like a biker. He used to bike, like a mountain bike, I think. He used to be very obsessive about that until he became, I think, sick at one point, and he had to drop it. Bottom line, okay? I don't remember the whole story, and I'm very much paraphrasing here, but he was super ambitious. I think all of these period cycles answered really well to the 9-8 from his birth date. Like, remember the life path and the birthday number, the 98? So it answered to that. But then he had to sort of expand and include the rest of his chart and understand that these are just like part of a greater whole. It's not the whole of his destiny, and he had to give it up and find something greater to live for, to direct that energy. I also want to say something about the upper triad I didn't mention so far, and that is that there's a lot of feminine energy in Adya. Like, Adya is really a spiritual teacher, a male spiritual teacher, who also embodies a lot of feminine energy. A lot of, perhaps this is why he puts a lot of emphasis on quietude, on silence, on rest, on stopping, on not going anywhere. Putting much more the emphasis on what's already here, recognizing what's already here, which is very, very much the natural tendency of the feminine compared to the ambitious, intense, practice-oriented, seeking-oriented approach of the more masculine energy. Both have their merits. I'm only describing to us in this episode what Adya embodies in my understanding. He's definitely also a very individualistic persona. Someone who's, again, dedicated to a path and dedicated to himself, to what really moves him. His chart includes a 9, a 3, a 1 personality number, all of these numbers, an 8, all of these, and also an 11. They're all very strongly individualistic numbers. And by the way, Adya, for example, doesn't have kids. He's married, but he doesn't have kids. And it sits really well with his numbers. Someone dedicated to a cause, someone, being very much in service, someone living for greater ideals. It's not that, and someone being very individualistic. It's not that I could not see him with a family. It's not that there is no potential for that in his chart. After all, he does have a 2 and a 3 in his upper triad, and these numbers can definitely go in the direction of kids, family, and so on. But somehow, with that very strong 9 and 8 at the center, with a 1 personality, with all the 1, 9, 8 guiding him in his period cycles, it took him in a different direction. It wasn't going to the direction of family and kids, but rather just being this person who is full on the path, realizing true nature, sharing true nature with the people. So I think I'll stop at that. This is, again, all on the spot, no preparation, just looking at the numbers, wanting to share how those numbers behave in real life. I also welcome you guys to go ahead and check Adyashanti. Simply write his name, check out, this person, and see how that corresponds with what I described about the numbers of his chart. I think that's the best way to learn. And I have a feeling that I will be doing many more of these episodes in the future, where I simply take a famous person's chart and analyze them. And here's a little calling for you guys, for all you beloved listeners. If you have a specific figure, a famous figure that you think I should analyze in this freestyle format, drop me a comment and let me know who you think I should be talking about. And so that's Adya. That's sharing, an analysis of a spiritual teacher's chart. Let's see what we do next. Who knows? Maybe a scientist, maybe an artist, maybe a politician. Who knows? We'll see. So, my friends, I just hope that this, again, gives you some perspective on how the numbers can be representations of a living persona. And again, maybe it brings you a little closer to feeling into the numbers, sensing them in real life. And before I wrap this up, again, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to keep supporting this work, supporting high quality numerology, and also yourself learning high quality numerology, make sure to subscribe, follow, and turn on the notifications bell on the platform you're listening from. Become part of this community. Make sure to follow me on Substack, where I write content about numerology and Dharma combined. Again, the links are all in the episode description. Remember to leave a comment, share your thoughts, let me know what person you want me to talk about next time. Don't forget to check out my professional numerology readings. Just a great way for you to experience numerology. And again, if you want to yourself become proficient in numerology, then check out my self-study numerology courses, and definitely check out my in-depth numerology courses, or more correctly, my in-depth numerology certification studies if you want to acquire deeper mastery of numerology. So, my friends, that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish you well. And as always, I'll see you in the next episodes. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, and you want to go deeper into numerology, check out my website, tom-eckert.com. You can also book a numerology reading or even study numerology yourself through my courses. I'll see you in the next episode.